What's up, gang? Andrew Cooper here, Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco, and we have is the music playing now? What's going on? Okay, Earn Dog, thank you for the technical support there, buddy. I appreciate you. What's up, guys? Andrew Cooper here. This is Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco. I'm Andrew Cooper, aka Coupe Fiasco on Twitter. I'm here with Fantasy Alarm. This is the Better Sports Network. We're sponsored by FFPC, and boy, do I have a good guest for you today. This show, I wanted it to be whatever I wanted to do. So on Monday, we do all the boring, nerdy stuff, get all the homework done, and then on Friday, I bring in a friend. And I was only picking people that I actually like. That's the plan here. The thing with this guest is that in this world, you have, there's people that are good people that are bad at their job. Then there's people that are good at their job, but they're kind of jerks. Some people might put me in that category. And then you have the rare occasion where there's somebody who's actually really good at their job and they're also an excellent person. That's Pat Fitzmaurice of Fantasy Pros. The best, my favorite. I'm just going to bring him on now because he's my dude. So, Pat, what's up, buddy? How are we doing today?
Coop. Oh my gosh, what a flattering intro. I feel like I should do something to, I don't know, dispel this notion that I'm such a nice guy. Like I see all the Boston merch. Can I talk some trash about the Celtics?
Dude.
I mean, I'm a Milwaukee guy, so I'm feeling like the Celtics don't have much of a chance at winning the East this year. So I'll just start by saying that.
Wow, dude. I say you're a nice guy. You come on and you slander my boys. We traded away Marcus Smart. You see the Smart jersey, you go right for my heart, dude. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable.
I know, man. It does suck that you guys got Drew Holiday though, because I love Drew.
Yeah.
You can't turn down the opportunity to get Damian Lillard. But Holiday is awesome. You guys are gonna love him. I wish he had not gone to Boston, but man, it's gonna be a fun NBA season, man. I can't wait.
That's right.
Why are we talking NBA?
I know. This show, it goes by so fast. We've actually, folks in the chat, shout out Ann Dunn, shout out Scampers, everybody hanging out. Like the people that have been here for the show know that we've never made it through the full slate. We've never made it through the full slate, not one time. The way this show works for those just joining us for the first time is that I go on long-winded diatribes, and then when my guest speaks, I yell at them to go faster. And we never get through the show, but we have a good time. So I'll do my best, Pat, to guide us through. What we're going to do today, we're going to go through the slate. We're going to talk about each matchup. First, I'm going to ask you, because I know you do not just Fantasy Pros, but also betting pros, right? So I'm going to ask you, is there a bet? For me, I don't like to bet on every single game. I'm not going to ask you to pick every game, but when you look at it and say, okay, is there a bet here? Tell me the ones you really like, and then we'll get into fantasy. Halfway through, we'll make an FFPC team, which is one of my favorite platforms to play on. Have you played on that one yet, Pat?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so that's a fun one because you can just make crazy teams, just absolutely bonkers teams. So everybody go out there, use promo code Coop at myffpc.com and get set up there. So hey, let's first, before we get into it, let's talk about last night. And I wanted to ask you specifically, while we're talking about being nice guys and being professionals, what were your thoughts on the Steve Smith comments on Jeudy?
Oh man, that was kind of wild. And I know Steve Smith is a guy who has a bit of an edge. And I like that about him. I mean, that was the part of the attraction when he was a player, this undersized guy who was like pound for pound one of the toughest dudes ever to play the game. But I mean, I think you can be critical of a player without being that harsh and that direct about it. Like I'm mentally unable to handle constructive criticism. That was one of the things. Yeah, that was one of the things that Smith said about Jeudy. I just don't think he handled the situation very tactfully, and it did come off as if his criticism of Jerry Jeudy was leveled in such a way as to call attention to Steve Smith. And
it was personal.
It kind of felt that way. And like, don't do it to shine the spotlight on yourself.
Right. And I think that's what he was doing in both cases. Like, I think his intention was to go and apologize. And then the first segment was going to be, hey, I said some bad things about Jeudy. I apologize. And now I'm rooting for him. It was going to be about Steve Smith no matter what,
It felt that way. Yeah.
And that's the thing. in our industry, you see a lot of that too, where people get personal, they bash each other. That's why, I try not to do any of that. I will argue about football, but I'm never going to get personal. I don't quote tweet people. I treat, as crazy as it sounds, Twitter is kind of our workplace, right? You know what I mean? It's kind of like we work with, you work with Fantasy Pros, I work with Fantasy Alarm, but all of our colleagues, we have a conference every day, right? On Twitter. So it's like I just try and treat my colleagues with respect when they deserve it. That's all. You know.
Yeah,
Uh,
we have different points of views on things
of
for
course.
sure. We will have disagreements in the next hour, I'm sure, Coop. But
No question, buddy.
yeah, but you can express those disagreements respectfully, and not make someone feel like crap when you're making your point.
For sure. Absolutely. So anyway, that game, honestly, we don't really, in my opinion, we only have so much time. We got a full slate of games. It's really only two teams on bye. So we're missing one game this week. That game doesn't really need to be dissected too much. We got a question in the chat real quick and then let's get to it. What up, Dylan? What's up? So we have two questions here. Michelle wants to know if you have time for questions. Half PPR need two flex: Zach Moss, Terry McLaurin, T. Higgins, Tutu Ford, or Amari DiMercato. What do you think, Fitz?
Oh man, I think McLaurin. I'm going
Yep,
with one. I know it hasn't been pretty, and Atlanta's kind of a tough matchup with their outside corners being
Terrell.
pretty good. Man, like I don't know if I can trust Moss here, Coop. I don't know if we're like they've already said they're going to ramp up Taylor's
Right.
workload, and the Jaguars' run defense has been kind of low key stingy this year.
They made James Cook look. Did James Cook have negative rushing yards last week?
I
Like
think he did.
it was
I
just
think he did.
crazy. Yeah. So
Yeah.
uh,
So can you run
the
down
rest
that list?
were the rest were
DeMercado.
Higgins if active, and I mean that's the thing. If Higgins, if they're saying he's a full go,
Yes,
then you go that way. But I mean,
sure.
it's just hard to trust it. And then it's 2-2 Jerome Ford in kind of a rough matchup, and then Amari DiMercato.
Man, I'm worried Tutu's target share is gonna disappear now
I
with
know.
Cup back. So, man, I'd probably just go with Ford if Higgins doesn't play. I hate to
I'm there
say it. I
too.
mean,
I'm there too. Because thing with Ford, he has had tough matchups before, and he gets away with, like, the Eagles one, for instance. He kind of made up for it through the air. Caught a touchdown pass. So he's out there enough, I think. We really got to get to these matchups, but DJ Moore or Jonathan Taylor in the flex.
DJ Moore,
Good.
slam
Yep.
dunk there.
That's where I'm at. And then they want to add Charbonnet. Drop. Obviously, you're not dropping Fields. Do you drop Jalen Warren, Algier, Deontay Johnson? Oh man, Quentin Johnston, Jake Ferguson. Do you drop any of those guys for Zach Charbonnet?
I mean, if Ferguson's your second tight end, you can drop him. You could probably drop Quentin Johnston. Ferguson, if he's just a backup tight end, he's the guy to get rid of. But like, it is worth getting Charbonnet as a lottery ticket because if anything happened to Walker, he's instantly like a top 10 running back.
Bingo. Yeah. All right. Good. Let's get to some matchups. Folks in the chat, do us a favor. I got a little cheat code for you. When we get to a matchup, say right now we have the 9:30 game. We're going to talk about Ravens Titans. If you ask a Ravens Titans question while we're talking about that matchup, the odds of me answering it or Pat answering it improve exponentially. Right. So if you keep with the flow of the show and you have questions and you can throw them in when we get to those matchups, it's going to help us out. It's going to help you out. So first matchup here, we have Ravens at Titans. They're going to go play on that concrete field they set up in London, right? What I'm seeing on most recent lines, tell me if you're seeing something different, Pat. It's a +4 in favor of the Ravens, and it's a 41.5 over under. And I hesitate to call either of these teams the home team. Even last week, honestly, when the Bills were quote unquote the home team, it was a home game for the Jaguars because they play out there all the time. They were out there for a week, so in my opinion, you lose all home field advantage here. But is there a bet here for this game, or are you just kind of staying away?
For me, there's not a bet
Yeah,
on this one, Coop.
I'm scared. The one bet I would place is I bet somebody gets hurt because these are two of the most injury-prone teams in that playing surface. The Bills lost Matt Milano for the season, Daquan Jones for the season. Dalton Kincaid walked away with concussion. Dawson Knox had a wrist injury. Like it's a pretty rough turf. So, yikes. If you had to start one, Gus Johnson or Justice Hill?
Oh
I
man,
know. I know.
I have those guys as Siamese rankings twins. I've got Hill one spot ahead of Gus. We know Gus isn't going to be involved at all in the passing game, and Then there's just the goal line usage. We don't know if he's going to get it. Lamar likes to call his own number near the goal line, and we've seen Justice Hill get goal line touches too. So I just don't see a lot of value to either of these guys, but Hill maybe has a little more upside.
Honestly, I do my weekly rankings the same way, where I think about what I would do in my leagues, and I go through the list of guys where I say, this is an actual starting running back that I trust. And when that list runs out, I sit here and say, I would start either Ravens back here and I would start either Cardinals back here. So that's why you do get a lot of those back-to-backs. It's not like it's a mechanism of how we mentally process how to set lineups, you know?
Very true. Yes.
What about on the other side? Any concern about the running back split there, or is Derrick Henry still the guy and Spears just kind of the bench play?
I mean, I do think they're going to continue to give Spears snaps because he has been so electric whenever he's touched the ball. And it's kind of a shame that he's in this situation and doesn't really have a shot to earn more playing time because he kind of warrants it. I mean, he's been really exciting. It does take some of the luster off Henry. I think he's now like to the point where maybe low end running back 1, high end running back 2 value. You're still playing him every week. Still waiting for that explosive game, that big Derrick Henry game, and I don't know if he gets it against the Ravens.
Let's see when they play the Texans, right? Because that's when
you know it's coming.
That's when he steamrolls them. Yeah. So yeah, we do have a couple quick questions in the chat on this game. Gus Edwards, or would you go with one of the other Dolphins, Salvin Ahmed or Jeff Wilson?
I'd go with Jeff Wilson if he's active.
Yeah. The funny thing is the coach came out there like, we're not going to give him more than 25 reps. And I was like, 25 reps? I mean, that's like that's what Breece Hall gets. You know what I mean? It's like
exactly
25 reps that's great, right? Especially for a guy where all you're doing anyway is hoping he scores a touchdown, kind of, right? So on 25 reps, yeah, for sure. And then Salsco, great member of this community, man. Love when Salsco's hanging out with us. He says, thoughts on Keaton Mitchell coming off the IR? There's a kind of similar smoke for him like there was this offseason for Jaleel McLaughlin. You got him anywhere? You thinking about him at all?
Yeah, I do not have him anywhere. Haven't been able to stash him. He is stashed in a lot of my leagues where I tend to play in leagues with deeper rosters. So he's been claimed in a lot of spots. He's intriguing. The only thing is, Coop, I don't know if I can envision him ever being in a spot to get more than 8 or 10 touches a game, tops. Smaller guy. Not only do they have Justice Hill and Gus Edwards around, they've also got the veterans, Kenyon Drake, Melvin Gordon. It just seems like there are a lot of rungs for him to climb on that ladder to be fantasy relevant. And then even then, I think it would be low level relevance, like dart throw flex type guy.
For sure. And that's the thing. Lamar Jackson also historically doesn't like to dump it down, and he's willing to take it himself. So yeah, a lot of barriers there. Scampers points out, shout out Scampers, the chat cat. Derrick Henry plays Houston twice during fantasy playoffs. So yeah.
Oh my goodness. And by the way, got to meet Scampers at the Fantasy Football Expo and Mrs. Scampers. And they are just awesome people. So how you doing, Scampers? Great to see you in the
shout out Scampers, shout out Dame Overboard. That's the Mrs. Scampers. She's a FYF legend. But anyway, we're now through a quarter of the show. We've got one matchup done. This is how it happens, Pat. This is how it happens, brother. It's just, it's like a couple questions, a couple things. Kind of tough, man. Shout out Pablo. Thanks for popping in, even if you can't hang for a while, man. This is going to be up on YouTube as always. Probably put it up on Apple and Spotify and stuff. I've been slacking on that. We'll get those up. Next one, Commanders at Falcons. On this one, we're looking at Falcons favored by 2.5, and the over-under is 42.5. So kind of a pick 'em. Anything there for you?
Yeah, I took the Commanders on the money line, plus 124. And it's just, I don't understand why the Falcons have been such a public team all year. Like, I just don't think they're good. I don't think Arthur Smith's offensive system is very optimizes the weapons they have. The play.
That's the nicest way you could possibly put it.
Yeah, I mean, Coop, you have Drake London, Bijan Robinson, and Kyle Pitts. And last week, they ran 2 reverses, not one, but 2 reverses to Scotty Miller. They had a direct snap play to Kaderil Hodge.
Yeah. They had Drake London throw it to Jonnu Smith.
Yeah, Jonnu is getting more targets than Kyle Pitts. I mean,
Right. It's crazy, man.
it's such look at me play calling,
It's
man.
crazy, bro. And that's the other part about like when you're placing these bets, you ask yourself, like, okay, why does this team lose? And the Falcons, it's easy. It's like after every game they lose, you say, man, Desmond Ritter looked bad. And the games they win, last week was the first time he actually looked, somewhat decent, but he does not look good, man. He does not really look good. So I'm rooting for Kyle Pitts. I'm stashing him for the Taylor. I'm hoping his knee gets better and Taylor Heineke comes back down the stretch, and that's when you get some upside for him. I also just want to mention real quick on tight ends, Logan Thomas, man, has been rock solid. His usage when healthy is up there with the elite guys. He's only started in 65% of FFPC main event leagues right now, which it boggles my mind. It's mind boggling because this guy leads his team in targets per game. And in one of those games, he left with a concussion and only played half the game. If you really wanted to boil it down to 3.5 games and divide the targets by that, he clearly is the target leader on this team. So Eric Bieniemy brought his bag of tight end tricks that he used with Travis Kelce. Are you in with me on Logan Thomas? You got him ranked top 10 this week?
I am, Coop. Yeah, I've got him TE8 this week, and it does seem also like Sam Howell is more comfortable throwing to the middle of the field than to the boundaries, which bodes well for Logan Thomas. So yeah, I agree. And the Bieniemy thing, I'm glad you brought that up. It does seem like Bieniemy does like to leverage his tight ends, and man, like Thomas looks sensational in that game against the Bears. I know a lot of it was like game script, this juiced up, try to come back in the second half, but still, he was fantastic in that game.
Yeah. Falcons are one of the worst teams versus the tight end. And you see this at times with teams that are built this way, where they have, you already mentioned AJ Terrell on the outside is a great corner, and they have Jesse Bates back there. It's kind of funnels things over the middle. You see it with the Eagles. Eagles are letting up a lot to the tight end, specifically because they have two good corners on the outside. The Jets are letting up the most points in the league of any team to the tight end because they have Sauce Gardner and DJ Reed on the outside. So sometimes you get the funnels, man. Sometimes you get the funnels, and it's good for us for fantasy. I got to ask, John Dotson, is he droppable? Are you hanging on to him?
Oh man, like in
No.
a short bench league, I think you could drop him. It just we did not expect quite this disbursement of targets. I think with them, like we've seen, McLaurin is the leader with a 17.3% target share. All of McLaurin, Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas, and I might be forgetting someone, like 4 or 5 guys have between 25
Right
and
in there.
31 targets
Yeah.
this year, and 5 other guys have double-digit targets. Like, it's just spread around,
Right.
and, no one is really cashing in.
Bad for fantasy, man. You would see it with, like it's like with Tom Brady at times where just like unless they had Gronk or Edelman, there was nothing. He spread it everywhere, and it's just kind of brutal there. So,
Yeah.
but Logan Thomas, the thing is, if the target's going to be even for everybody, and was my thought process with the Jaguars last year as well. If the targets are spread even, one of those guys you could start at tight end, and that's a positional advantage. So Logan Thomas, we're feeling good. I talked about on Monday how an advantage you can get is when there are these players that haven't really done it, and there's tons of hype. Ask yourself, what happens if the hype is wrong, right? Like, so much Jahmyr Gibbs hype, and people got a discount on David Montgomery. So much Jahan Dotson hype, people got a discount on Logan Thomas. So unless it's proven, then ask yourself, well, what? Even if you believe the hype, like I liked Jahan Dotson, but like you have to ask yourself, what if everybody's wrong? So keep that in mind out there. Last one on this game before we move on to the next one. Van Jefferson, any interest on the trade or? No.
No, although Arthur Smith's fetish for getting peripheral guys involved, maybe that does get him. Maybe it's his turn to have the direct snaps instead of Kadero Hodge. But
Yeah,
if
exciting.
we can't reliably use Drake London, like I don't think we can reliably use Van Jefferson, who wasn't able to get over on the Rams, even with the Stafford like throwing it 40 times a game.
Fact, yeah. Van Jefferson is a good real life football player to have on your team from an NFL standpoint because he's a coach's kid. He can play all the positions. He's a perfect fourth man because you don't have to have multiple backups, but that's what he is. He's like Zach Pascal, right? Next one, Vikings Bears, a little more fun for fantasy football. I'm seeing that the over under on this has plummeted. Is that weather related? It opened at 49 down to 43.5.
Yeah, it is, as we speak right now, Coop, windy and rainy, and it's gonna be like that all weekend here in
Oh,
Chicagoland. Yeah, so I'm out in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, as you know, Soldier Field, right on Lake Michigan. The wind is supposed to be howling out of the north this week. Like, I'm generally a fade the weather guy, but, it's gonna be wind and rain in Chicago Sunday, so it's possible that does tamp down the passing productivity a little bit in that game.
yeah, I feel that, man. It's the rule of thumb for me is that once you hit 15 miles an hour, I start to worry. Over 20, and especially at 25, now you have to throw curveballs basically to get that ball in there. Like the wind is actually affecting the flight of the ball, and kickers just off the table for those games. Take the kickers out.
Yeah, 20 is my threshold for concern, and
20.
I think we're gonna hit that on
Yeah.
Sunday.
Yeah. We missed it on last one, but we were talking about the Commanders. I want to reward people for bringing up questions when we're talking about those games. So Ann Dunn wanted to know Curtis Samuel, Elijah Moore, or Keontae Ingram in a flex this week.
I think I'm going Curtis
I
Samuel.
kind of like him. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing with Curtis Samuel is that the big difference maker for him is if you get a carry here and there, man, that can move the needle. That can move the
Yeah,
needle extra 10, 15 yards, maybe a touchdown. So I
that
like
and
him.
Howell's, proclivity to throw over the middle rather than out to the boundaries too. I think that benefits Logan Thomas and Curtis Samuel.
Yeah, for sure. Your thoughts on life without Justin Jefferson? Uh, if you had to pick one, Osborne or Addison?
Addison.
Yeah, yeah, yep,
Addison.
yep, yep,
I
yep.
mean, as it is, he has played like 70 fewer snaps, I think, than Osborne this year, and he's scored like 20 some more fantasy points. So yeah, on a per snap basis, he's been way more productive.
There's so many of those, man. With us analytics guys, we just sit here and we're like, just flip it, dude. Just give us Addison. I know that there's more that goes into the position, run blocking and what have you, but I mean, come on now, give the people what they want. There's a couple more of those I want to ask you about as we go through. But on this Bears side, do you are you I know you're close. You got boots on the ground in the area over there. Are you believing in this turnaround? Or do you think that the Bears we saw early are we close moving forward? Are we going to see closer to what we saw last week or closer to what we saw early in the season?
Maybe somewhere in between,
Yeah,
Coop. Like, last year, Justin Fields averaged 149 and a half passing yards a game, and he was still the QB6 in
right.
fantasy. Now with the 2 big weeks, he's up at like, I don't know, 226 passing yards a game. Like, I think he probably levels off around 200 passing yards a game, but like that's more sustainable than last year's model where he was, running for 1,100 yards and risking his health with the amount of running he was doing. Like DJ Moore is fantastic. I mean, I'm a huge DJ Moore fan, and I'm not biased, Coop, because I'm actually a Green Bay Packers fan living behind enemy
Oh, that's
lines
right,
here in
dude.
Illinois. But yeah, so I mean, like Moore is sensational. Top 12 wide receiver probably going forward. And like that the whole DJ Moore thing with Justin Fields, it worked in training camp. It worked in the preseason. It was always going to work in the regular season, even if there were a couple of dry spells the first few
Right.
weeks.
And you know what? With some guys, like he's gonna have with guys like this, he's gonna have down weeks every once in a while. I look at it kind of like very early Tyreek Hill, where it was like every once in a while he would just kind of have a rough game because he didn't hit the big one. But
Sure.
the thing is, it's so good when it's real good that you can't afford to not have him in there. So at this point, he's just you're putting him in there and just you gotta hold your nose for the down weeks. That's how I treat it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Cole Kmet to me, not really. He's the thing is everyone they look at it and they're like, oh, he's tight end 4 on the year. But when you look at the underlying data, it's not as good as you would hope. He's not playing a full snap share, not running a ton of routes. Rest of season wise, do you have him as a top 12 tight end? It's kind of hard not to, but
Yeah, he's right around
yeah.
there. Coop, low end, tight end 1. And I know what's your rule about tight ends where the Coop rule is like if a guy can plausibly be seen as
Top 2
like the
target. Yeah.
second
The top 2
top
target.
2 target earner. And I guess you can say that
You
about
can.
Cole
You
Kmet, right?
can. And then people say that to me.
So,
That's what stinks is that I have those rules and people come to me and say that and I have to be like, oh, you're right.
yeah, I hate to
Yeah,
play
you
your
know,
own
but you're
rule
right
on
though.
you
They
here,
do it to
Coop,
me.
but
That's such a Reddit move, Pat, to play my own rule on me. But
it is.
real
It
though,
is,
like we
man.
have to respect the rules, and it keeps me honest. It keeps me honest. Keeps me from my bias is I take them out. I mean, my rankings that I post online, and when I post them on the yin and yang, right up when I post them on Twitter, sometimes those don't even jive with what I would do in my own leagues because I recognize my own bias. And I have started Dalton Kincaid in multiple weeks and I've paid for it, but I've ranked him differently. Like, so I even put my own bias aside when I do the rankings. So I try and do my best for the people out there. So, but yeah, Cole Kmet, it's possible. If he were playing week 1, he played 72 of 74 snaps. And since then, he hasn't done that again. He's been like 60%. If he were to all of a sudden become that guy, I would move him way up, dude, way up. So hopefully,
I know, man. It's disappointing to see them giving Robert Tunyon some
yeah,
run
right,
now.
for sure.
But yeah, we saw that against the
Yeah.
Commanders.
So last one, we get another question on this game. We have Donta Foreman, Zach Moss, or Curtis Samuel. Start one. That's from Andon. I
Oh
know.
man. If there's a PPR, it's PPR. Yeah, I think I'm going Curtis Samuel. We know like Donta Foreman isn't going to do anything in the passing game. Moss actually has been catching passes, but um, yeah, I'm still going
Yep.
Curtis Samuel
I
here, I
like it. No,
think.
Curtis Samuel's good there. He's like Walmart Debo Samuel. That's Curtis, right? He's Walmart
Yes.
Samuel. And speaking of such, I'll answer this one. Osborne over Debo. I mean, with the win concerns, it's already close enough that I was going to start Debo, but with the win, just start Debo. You know. Uh, so
Yeah, it's going to be bad weather in Cleveland too, like the whole Great Lakes. But I mean, that might actually
what
play
Debo does.
well for Debo, like some rushing attempts, some short area
Screens,
targets.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm going
For
Debo
sure.
too.
All right. Speaking of, this is one I was kind of alluding to when talking about the Osborne Addison split. We're looking at Colts at Jaguars. Before we get to fantasy, I'm seeing the Jags are favored by 4.5, 44.5 over under for the Minshew Mania Part 9 return to the jungle. Is there a bet there? And also how many Jaguars fans are going to be wearing their Minshew jerseys this week?
Oh yeah, interesting. Gardner Minshew revenge game, Coop. Kind of a weird and rare spot for the Jags coming off 2 weeks overseas. I can't help but feel like they're maybe not going to be tip
Right.
top this week. So I kind of like the points here with the Colts because I don't think realistically there's not a big what is the difference between Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew mean to the spread? Is that even
I
worth
don't
half
think
a
it is.
point? I don't know if it
I
is.
don't know if it is.
I mean, like, yeah, like Richardson's a really fun player, but as far as like putting up points and winning games, I don't know that he's like discernibly better than Gardner Minshew right now.
Sometimes I wonder with these mobile QBs and the rushing touchdowns, to some degree, how many of those could have just been touchdowns by the running back? I mean, with the tush push, I mean, look at Jared Goff with the couple QB sneaks. I mean, it's just like,
Yep.
what's the value to some degree? In fantasy, it's obviously incredibly valuable. But I mean, I think Minshew, as for the wide receivers, it might even be an upgrade for these guys. Question in the chat here: Pittman or Nico Collins? Collins, tough matchup with Marshawn Lattimore. Pittman obviously playing with mustache mullet man. What do you think? I know.
Yeah, these two are like within a spot or two of my rankings. I think I have Nico ranked higher. I don't know, maybe you have to reconsider that with the Lattimore matchup, but then again, there's no Tank Dell,
Right.
so might mean some target spillover for Nico. Yeah, like I think Nico's got more splash play potential. To be honest, like Nico has been the more impressive player
Right.
this year. Like Nico has looked phenomenal. I'm not terrified of that Lattimore
Yeah.
matchup.
So my hope, I have Nico in about half my leagues. My hope is that Nico has a bad game this week so that I can get him in the other half of my leagues because, he struggled last week versus AJ Terrell. If he struggles versus Lattimore this week, I look at that schedule and I'm like, hey, this looks a lot more like the early schedule than it does, tough one-on-one matchups. So I'm hoping he has a down week so I can buy low on Nico action. But yeah, that one's very close, man. That one is very close. I wanted to ask you. So this is what I alluded to earlier: is that this is another one where you look at the snap shares, right? Pittman always leads the league. Last year he led the league. This year he's leading the league again. 99% of the snaps. They had a game where they played 84 snaps. He played 84 snaps, right? Josh Downs is actually wide receiver 6 in snap share, 94%. Sorry, not Josh Downs. Alec Pierce is wide receiver 6 in snap share. Josh Downs is playing a partial snap share, but he looks better. Do you foresee a world where that actually flips at any point, or do you think it just is what it is in terms of snaps for this year?
I think it is what it is because in 2 receiver sets, it's gonna be Pittman and,
Because he's 6'4".
Pierce. He's just yeah, he's the outside
Yeah.
guy, and when they go 3 wide, it's gonna be I know it's and the thing is, like, Downs is pretty viable this week
Yeah.
because he has not been utilized that much by Anthony Richardson. I think in the 2 games that Richardson has started and finished, Downs has averaged, like, 5.7 PPR points or something, but in any game that Minshew has appeared in this year, that's 3 of them, Downs is averaging, like,
12,
12
yeah, he had
some
12 targets
PPR
that one game.
points a game.
Yeah, and that you
Yeah.
know what Richardson did, he is proving that so far that he is just like the most prototypical rushing quarterback. He's not interested in dumping it down, is he? Like he's just
Yep.
gonna run around,
No,
yeah,
not at
and if they
all.
get he's gonna run it himself, and if they get close to him, he just bombs it, dude, which great for Pittman, but
Yeah, I right, Pittman's the only playable guy, but this week too, I think the Jags have kind of a slot funnel defense. Like Trey Herndon has been getting picked on a lot. So could be a good Josh Downs
yeah.
week.
Chef NFL, I apologize. I sorry I missed your question. But it didn't look like a question. Traded Pearson, Laporta for Ingram and Mixon. Tight end is Andrews. Can you ask the question again? Sorry about that, brother. Throw what the question is in there, and we'll definitely answer it. Also, shout out Dustin saying Coop and Pat, great combo, dude. Shout out Dustin, happy birthday! It's
Uh,
Dustin's birthday today, Pat.
oh, Dustin. Awesome, man. Dustin's a
The
great
G.
dude. Happy
Yeah,
birthday,
Dustin does
Dustin.
a
Yeah.
huge one thing that I always rely on Dustin for is he knows all the pronunciations of all the players' names. And if he doesn't, he does the hard research, watching college stuff and figuring that out. So
Nice.
just a huge asset for the community, man. But yeah, sorry. Yeah, Chef wants our input on this trade. What do we think on the trade? So he traded Damian Pierce and Laporta for Ingram and Mixon. I personally kind of love it. I mean,
Yeah, b big win at running back, at the all important running back position. And like
he has Andrews as tight
not much
end,
of a
so,
drop.
I mean, geez,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's a
that's a
great,
great trade. Yeah,
great
good
trade
job, dude.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So yeah, I mean, for this game, is there anything else that you wanted to hit on from this one on the Jags? I mean, Ingram's been solid. ETN, I mean, ETN rest of the season. We talking top 5 here?
Yeah, I've got him running back 5 in
Yes.
my rest of season
Yes.
rankings. Run pass usage and the Tank Bigsby threat has not materialized.
Yes. And of course, folks that don't know, Pat, pretty much runs the show over at Fantasy Pros there. And obviously, when you're plugged into the aggregate of the entire industry's rankings, you got a pretty good idea of the value on these guys. Like you're pretty plugged in on the industry sentiment, no, Pat?
Yeah, definitely. Like you can sort of tell which way the wind is blowing when you look at the ECR,
Yes.
the expert consensus rankings as much as I do. I kind of live on that page during the season. So,
It's great though because the thing is the best thing, my favorite thing is when I look at it and I disagree because then I can say there's there's room for me to arbitrate this. Like I can make trades because it's like it's not any one person's opinion, right? That's the beauty of it. Is that
right.
who are you going to argue with? You're yelling at clouds if you argue with the ECR, but if you disagree and you're right, there's value to be had, right? In DFS and everywhere. So it's an amazing tool.
And then there are times like last week, Coop, when I can't figure out why everyone's got Jacoby Myers so high. Like the guy doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. Devontae Adams going against the Packers, he's going to get like 15 targets. And of course, like Jimmy Garoppolo never looks
Right.
Devontae Adams' way. Jacoby Myers is a great
He's
game.
he's
Yeah,
got it, dude. It's something. It's like it's in Jacoby Myers, it's in Cooper Cup, it's in Dustin Pedroia. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can't
yes,
put the guy
yes,
in the gym and measure but it's in there, right? So it's the X factor that you have to watch the games, man. There's something there.
yeah.
There's something. Okay. Let's get the next one. 49ers at Browns. This weather game as well. And it was already super low scoring. It opened at 38 and a half as the over under, now down to 35 and a half, which is disgusting, man. I mean, I can't imagine there's really a bet here, unless you just want to smash the under.
No. Yeah, I don't want to do anything with this. I mean, and the Browns, I mean, they might actually have like a Super Bowl caliber defense, but then again, the 49ers just pick their teeth with the Cowboys who have a Super Bowl caliber defense. So, yeah, man, it just feels like this could have been in different circumstances a really exciting game and probably is not going to be
Yeah.
one.
Good God. Interesting point here from Chris Sellers, thinking it's going to be such a blowout that Jordan Mason gets some look. I think is Elijah Mitchell still
Oh
probably
man.
out, right?
Didn't he get into practice like
Uh-oh,
yesterday? I
Sellers.
thought I saw that he was back at practice. So, but man, even if Mason is number 3, maybe
Yeah.
he does get some run in this game. Because why hustle back Mitchell to a game that's probably going to be a blowout? I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, the Freaky Friday time slot switch, Toronto Dave with Brit, is because I was supposed to do a lecture at my college every year, and I was supposed to be today, so I switched time slots, and they moved it to next Tuesday, which is my busiest day. You try and do something nice, Pat, and all of a sudden, it's like, but so that'll be next Tuesday. Not moving any time slots next Tuesday. I'm just gonna power through. So whatever on that. And then Sea Dog doing the right thing, waiting till we're talking about the Browns to ask a Browns question. So you get to go up on the screen here. Amari Cooper or Chuba Hubbard for you this week. Miles Sanders is out. Also, a little side question about dropping Hunt, Pat.
Yeah, I do think Hunt is probably droppable if benches are shorter. Like, yeah, there's just I don't know. I don't see him overtaking Ford. Absolutely Chuba
Yeah.
Hubbard here. I do not want to even if PJ Walker is an upgrade over Dorial Thompson Robinson. I mean, Cooper had what 6 targets with
Right.
DTR and 1 catch for 9 yards, I think it was. I just yeah, it's hard to see the upside with Cooper
Yeah.
this week.
So yeah, I'm trying to avoid people in this game. Obviously, you got to fade. Look at when it comes to these win games. Look at A dot, man. It's going to affect. It's going to affect Cooper more than it does Elijah Moore. It's going to affect. It's going to affect Brandon Ayuk more than it affects Debo. So that's the way it goes with these win games. Be careful with that stuff. Right. Let's get to one more and then we'll make an FFPC team, which is a fun part. Seahawks at Bengals. I'm looking at Bengals favored by 2.5, 45.5 over under. Anything there? Anything you like? The Bengals back.
I I took Seattle +3 because I'm not totally certain the Bengals are back.
Okay.
Doing it against the Cardinals, we'll see. Although there was a scramble by Joe Burrow last week that made me think his calf is probably
Ooh.
feeling a lot better. It looked kind of like the old Burrow, just like an opportunistic. All right, there's nothing there. There's open space in front of me. I'm going to run. But I felt like he wouldn't have been able to run maybe in week 2. So, they one more game, then they're on bye. Hopefully, by the time he comes back in week 8, he's 100%, although he does come back to matchups against the 49ers and the Bills. But like, I don't know. I don't feel right now like the Bengals are as potent a team as they were last season when they were legitimate Super Bowl contenders. The last 2 seasons doesn't feel like they're quite back up to that. And, Seattle's been pretty scrappier than I thought they were going to be this year.
And you look at this Cardinals team and the 49ers beat the Cardinals. It was basically just CMC and Trent Williams. And that's all I needed to have on the
Right.
field, right? Like,
Pretty much.
so
Yeah.
teams beating up on the Cardinals, I wouldn't plant a lot of flags in that. So there you go, folks. Seahawks, let's go. Coming off the bye too, which is obviously nice. I mean, for fantasy, you got to look around, especially if you're making DFS lineups and say, okay, which game is not impacted by the weather? So this one supposedly is going to be okay. Uh, and I mean, we know who you're starting Jamar Chase no matter what. You're starting DK Metcalf, probably starting Lockett. Do you have any interest in JSN even as a stash at this point, or is he just a handcuff now for wide receivers?
He is kind of the wide receiver handcuff. I think it would take either a Metcalf or a Lockett injury for him to pop, Coop. Just and the usage we've seen is not attractive. These ridiculously low A dots, like 1 or 2 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. You need massive Keenan Allen type target volume to make that work. He's not getting that sort of
He's
volume, so there's just no current
he's
value
basically
there.
Rondell Moore, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
pretty
that's the
much
deal. Uh,
glorified
Tyler
Rondell.
Boyd or DeMarcado, and even gotta say with the accent when he puts the emoji in there.
Yeah, I'll take my chance with
Do it.
DeMercado. Yeah, picked him up in my Serie A fantasy soccer team, soccer league this week, Coop.
Ooh.
I needed a midfielder. No, just kidding.
Di Mercado. Dude, fantasy soccer is so hard. Have you ever played? It's
I
so
have
tough,
not.
bro.
I have
My
not.
buddy's
It's
like really good at
yeah.
it. One year I played, and through like 3 weeks, I was like ranked in the very top of the world. I talked so much trash, and then it turned out that I was just getting crazy lucky, and my teams are actually really terrible. So, uh, Ridley, couple questions, and then we'll make a team. Ridley, Thielen, Lamb. You got to bench one. Could be Ridley, kind of, I guess, right? Can't bench Thielen.
Yeah, I think it would be, although Ridley, I think, does have the better matchup this week than Christian Kirk, because Kirk is maybe going against
Yeah.
what's the name of the veteran indie slot corner?
I know exactly what you're
More
talking about. Yes,
Kenny
yes, yes, yes,
Kenny
yes.
Moore.
Yep.
Is it Kenny Moore? Yeah, and the outside cornerbacks for the Colts have been pretty bad. So oh man, I'm
Guess
really
you
torn
could bench
between
Thielen.
Ridley
It's
and
kinda empty
Thielen.
targets to some well, no, I mean, I don't know, man. Can't bench Lamb. Can't bench Lamb
Yeah,
against the Chargers.
I think I'm probably playing Thielen over Ridley. It's really close
They have
though.
it. Good team, Scar. And one last one, Olave or Addison?
I'm still going
Me
with
too.
Olave. I know he's got the toe thing. I just like I'm such a firm believer in the talent and no weather
No
issues
weather
too.
issues for sure. All right, real quick, we're going to make an FFPC lineup. Folks that don't know, this is quickly becoming my favorite place to play because it's not like the other weekly platforms. No lineups. There's no salary. Sorry, there are lineups, but there's no salary. There's no draft. Basically, you can pick anyone you want, with the one rule of thumb being that you can't pick two players from the same team. Right. So it's just like their playoff format, which is obviously their super famous thing that they do. The playoff version is must play. This one's a weekly one. You can either get in 10-man, 30-man, or 100-man leagues. If you use promo code MyFFPC over at myffpc.com, use promo code Coop. If you deposit $35 or more, they'll give you 25. My suggestion: if you deposit $45, that'll get you to 70. Get you two lineups. There are two price points: 35 and 200. We're going to do a 30-man, $35 one right now. We're going to take the whole thing down. Me and Pat are going to split whatever we win. We're spending it all on drinks at the expo next year. Deal?
Oh, I
And
love that.
hopefully
Let's
we
do it.
win. If we come in first place, we're buying that's a round, right? That's just not just you and me drinks. That's drinks
Yes, yes.
at George's. So that's the game plan. One I want to get in here. I think it's we talk about the chalk plays and whether it's good chalk or bad chalk. I think Raheem Mostert is the good chalk versus Carolina this week. So that's one I want to get in there. Any objection on that?
No, I'm with you on
Okay.
that one.
Anything that jumps at you that like you were looking through and you're like, these are my like smash plays this week.
Yeah, I mean, if we as long as we don't have to duplicate at with any team or can't duplicate, I mean, we have to play Christian McCaffrey,
Yes,
don't we?
yes, absolutely.
In this
Yeah, oh my
matchup,
god,
I
yeah.
feel like we do. I feel like he and Jamar Chase are sort of auto
Right.
plays
Well, maybe
this
we
week.
should comb through the win games because that's the deal, guys. You can't start two guys from the same team. I actually love that though, because how many times have you played DFS like on the other sites and somebody just stacked two in Tyreek Hill and then it was over? You couldn't possibly win. No stacking here, man. No stacking gives everybody a chance. So uh I like it. I like it from that standpoint. So the other wind game, is there anything from the Vikings or Bears that we feel the need to get in there? Or
Mm.
do we just avoid that?
I mean, how do you feel about the Minnesota defense against
That's where we pull the
sack
defense.
sack eater Justin Fields, who goes down like 4 times every game? He's had 2 defensive touchdowns scored against him this week. But I don't know, there might be better defenses to be had
That's the
too.
thing about mobile QBs is sometimes you're watching the game and the sack doesn't even look like a sack. Like where he scrambles around and gets back
Right.
almost to the line, and in your mind you're like, "Oh, good job by Fields to not lose a bunch of yards." That's still a sack, right?
It's
Yeah.
a sack,
So
exactly.
I say we do it, dude, and that's a good use of that. Folks in the chat,
Okay.
let us know who you like for the plays out here. Chris Alves saying Lamb, Keenan Allen, Chalky Boys. I do like. What do you think about Keenan Allen?
Oh yeah. It seems like he's got to get a million targets, don't you think? And
Smash.
I know Dallas is a tough defensive matchup, but where else are you going on the Chargers? I don't know. I like Lamb too,
You know
Coop.
what?
What do you think
I
about
say do it.
Lamb?
That's what's great about this format is at the
Yep.
end you look at your team and you're like, I feel like I'm like stealing something. You know what I mean? Like these
Yes.
lineups,
Yes.
McCaffrey, Lamb, Allen, we can do whatever we want. So quarterback, let's see if we can kind of back our way into quarterback. But I mean, we got to get a Bill in there somewhere against the Giants. Do we go Diggs or Josh Allen or James Cook?
What do you think? Is this um I don't know. I mean, there's not a lot of appealing chalk at quarterback this
Right.
week with Mahomes off the table. Hurts in kind of a tricky matchup. So maybe Josh Allen
Yeah,
here.
let's go Allen. I like that. At tight end, I want to do Logan Thomas. I think with Sam
Oh,
Laporta banged
loved it.
up,
Yes.
it's like a great
Love it.
matchup for Logan Thomas. We already talked him up on the show. Let's do it, dude. Yeah, Vegas defense versus New England is that you're not even starting Vegas defense. You're just starting whoever's playing New England. That's the trick. But we're gonna go with the Vikings D. So now flexes, we can do whatever we want here. Let's see. Already got him in. David Montgomery against Tampa Bay, or do we go Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Mm. Um, yeah, Amon-Ra with no Laporta. Which of those is more attractive to
I think
you?
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I
He's
think
been
so
banged
too.
up, but I mean, no Laporta.
Yeah, I hit the over on his yardage total earlier this morning, which is like 73.5, and I feel like he's gonna go soaring past that with no Sam
Yeah,
Laporta.
bingo. Do we do Alvin Kamara against the Texans?
Oh, I'm good with
Yeah.
that. I'm real good with that.
Okay. Okay. Two more, and then we'll pick a kicker at the end. Uh, Dude, if Mike Evans is such a good matchup, but they say he's a full go, but do we trust it? I mean, we can start anyone we want.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like he has a hamstring injury every year, and he always seems to manage it and not miss time.
Yeah.
So, I'm not that terrified of playing him
I also
this
just
week.
quietly put Cooper Cup in there against Arizona.
Oh,
Done.
boom.
So, hey, we're
Love it.
good. All right, place kicker, that's what we need here. What teams haven't we used? Um, Got to avoid, we can go Colts place kicker, Jaguars, Brandon McManus. We can go Evan McPherson because we didn't use any Bengals. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I don't know if it's bad weather in, Cleveland. Is it gonna be maybe sort of bad in Cincinnati? I'd be okay with
Yeah.
McManus, even though I worry about the Jags hitting like a post-European malaise. I'd still be good with him as the
Okay.
the
Yeah.
kicker.
Chat. We can't use Aubrey because we use CeeDee Lamb. We can't use Riley Patterson because we use Amon St. Brown. So that's a tough one. And yes, we did not use any Eagles, which
Ooh. Oh, so do we
damn.
we wanna use Jake Elliott?
We could use Jake Elliott. I think that's the move.
We do that? Yeah, I think that
Good
is the
call.
move.
Hey, good job, Chris
Thanks,
Alves.
Chris.
All right, that's it. That's the squad. If you think that you can do better, and I bet you can, we haven't won yet, but we've come pretty darn close. And we have two Monday night players, which is great because you can get a little creative if you have to. If you think you can do better, go to myffpc.com. Use promo code Coop, COOP. If you deposit 35 or more, they'll give you 25, and you can get set up and just make absolutely monster lineups like this against us. So go check that out. That's awesome. And you want to make sure you get set up for the playoff one because that one is the best version. It's the most fun. So get set up with that. myffpc.com, promo code Coop. All right. As we planned ahead into doing, we're way behind on these matchups. So I'm gonna hit you with some rapid fire. It's the way it goes,
Let's
man.
do it.
It's the way it goes.
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
Next game on the slate here, Saints at Texans. We already talked about Alvin Kamara being a star. Tight ends, we're not touching it for the Saints. Michael Thomas versus Shaheed. What are your thoughts there, man? Do you want to see that flip or do you like it the way it is?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been effective the way it is, I guess. Thomas seems to be he's getting like a steady diet of just sort of low
Right.
level flex value, but like consistent targets. So I think he's the better option right
Yeah,
now.
I like him, man. I should have asked, but this is kind of a pick 'em. 42.5 over under, so kind of low. Texans are getting a 1.5 even at home. Is there a bet there for you at all?
Yeah, I've oscillated. At first I liked the Texans, then I sort of didn't and maybe thought the Saints were the right bet. I'm just walking away from this game.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So, Chris Alves the way it works with these is if you go in the 10 team one, the winner gets a entry into the Pat Fitzmaurice and gang Fantasy Pros Championship next year. Now, this year I'm going to win that because my team is awesome. It's a wagon. But next year anyone can win. Next year anyone can win. So if you get in the 10 team one and win that, you get a free entry into that. That's worth $350, right? For the 30 team one, the cash outs are first place gets, and I just want to make sure I get this exactly right. First place gets $500, second place gets $200, and then third place you have two options. You can either take $100 cash or you can take a free entry into best ball. And fifth place gets $35 credit. So you basically just get your money back to roll again. So the top 5 guys all get paid out. That's the $35 one. For the 100 team one, if you win, you get $1,000. And the top 15 teams get paid out. Basically, teams 10 through 15 get their money back. Everybody else is getting over $100. Second place gets 500. So if you cash in the 100 team one, the $35 one, you're cruising. Now, if you do the $200 10 team one, that gets you a FFPC main event buy-in if you win, $2,000 value. And if you win the 30 team $200 one, then you get like, $2,500. Even second place gets over $1,000. So a lot of fun, man. A lot of fun. We're definitely going to cash one this year. I'm hoping that we, $500 bar tab. What do you think? $200, that's drinks for you and me, buddy. $500, we'll get around for the Fantasy Alarm and the Fantasy Pros crew, right?
Oh yeah, how nice would that be to drop that on the bar at George's and say,
this is on Logan
everyone.
Thomas, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So we already kind of talked about the Texans in building the lineup, our thoughts on Nico Collins, our thoughts on Tank Dell. If you have questions in the chat, folks, get those out here. Just want to ask you, Robert Woods, are you doing anything? DFS, anything?
Oh man, he let me down last week. I bet the over on his yardage total, and it's just I don't believe in the player anymore. I just don't. He's not doing enough. He got plenty of targets last week. He just couldn't do anything.
Yeah, for real. I mean, Howard Bender, that was one of his plays of the week. And he got banged up a little bit in this game too. So it's not, you guys got bailed out a little bit, but I don't know. It's Robert Woods is just some of these guys, Michael Thomas, Robert Woods, Adam Thielen, it's going to take a lot of targets to get there because they don't quite have the pop they once did. That's the way it goes, right. Next game, Panthers at Dolphins. I'm looking at 47.5 point over under. Dolphins mega favorites. Last I checked, it was 14. Let me know if you're seeing anything different. But I mean, I always struggle to find a way to play games like this,
Same. I'll maybe play a college game at that sort of spread, but not. Yes. I don't like playing NFL games when they get that big.
Well, with the college games, it matters because if they set the spread at 30 and you win by 10, now you're losing juice. They count that as a loss. If you're a 30-point favorite and you win by 3, that's basically a loss in the way that they do the polls, right? Right. You have to crush these teams. It's kind of crazy. Whereas in the NFL, they say sorry and they don't want to run up the score, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know. I don't like betting them. For fantasy, though, there's a ton here, right? You start Tyreek Hill everywhere. You start Jalen Waddle everywhere. You start Raheem Mostert everywhere. On the Panthers side, Thielen, we talked about. Who's your next favorite? Because, Terrace Marshall kind of went to the back burner. But do you like Chark or do you like Mingo? Where do you live on those guys? You got to pick one.
Maybe Mingo. Yeah. Mingo. I think he's going to be a good player eventually. I mean, he does remind me. I like the physicality. He does remind me of sort of like a junior version of Anquan Bolden. But I don't know if he's going to fully blossom this year with the passing game in such a sort of developmental state with Bryce Young still trying to figure it all out.
Right. And I think that's what you're missing for these guys. They haven't had the opportunity yet to show you everything they do. And I put Mingo in this group. I put Treylon Burks in this group. Because when you look at a Deebo Samuel, once he got the chance to actually get some carries and do some end arounds and do some creative stuff, then he turned into the player he's supposed to be. And these guys, these physical guys, that's what we're missing so far, right? So I'm hoping to see it soon. Aztec in the chat asking a question on this game because he's a G, and he's also coming over from Twitch. So I got to throw the Twitch glasses on for the Twitch gang. Shout out Twitch gang, Aztec. He wants to know half PPR, pick one: Rachaad White, Zach Moss, Jonathan Taylor, or in this game, Chuba Hubbard. So we got White, Moss, JT, Hubbard, Taylor.
I'm going Chuba with the all the work here for the Panthers. With no Miles Sanders, it's just going to be Chuba and occasional relief from Raheem Blackshear. That's it.
Yeah. No, I'm in, man. I'm in. Chuba, like I've been on a Miles Sanders guy. He needed to go on the IR and get right. Like he might just miss a game, but just rolling him out there hurt is not doing anyone any favors. So I'm glad that we're going to get a break for him and a full game of Chuba for us to actually do something. Patriots Raiders game. I'm not even going to ask you any questions on the fantasy side because you can't really start any of the Patriots and the Raiders. It's so consolidated. You already know who to start, right? It's Adams, Myers, Jacobs, right? That's it. So is there a bet though? I'll ask that.
I'm taking the Patriots on the money line. I'm going with the mentor over the protege. Like I'm there we go, Coop. And I swear to God, I'm not pandering just because I'm on your show. But I
actually want them.
Like I'm gonna fade. Yeah, I'll fade Josh McDaniels, and I do think you can maybe play Ramondre against the Raiders' run defense that managed to make AJ Dillon.
Okay, awesome, man. Lions Bucs. Is there a bet? +3 for the Bucs, 42.5 over under. Interesting that the Lions, the that's only +3, in my opinion.
I'm a sucker for a good home dog. I got Bucs
Baker.
+3.
It's Baker. Say what you will about his ability. The guy is likable, and I'm rooting for him. And I'm starting him in a league this week where I lost Anthony Richardson. So there's that. Jameson Williams worth a stash, or do you believe he'll ever? Do you think he'll ever hit like a game where he does 75%, 80% of the snaps this year?
Oh man,
because that's it, right?
Maybe. I just worry about him being like one of these all tools, no toolbox type dudes, like Chase Claypool. The guy just can't seem to pull it all together.
Don't you ever say that.
I don't know.
Don't you ever say that? Because there's so many of those guys, though, right? Like I've seen so many clips of Funchess dunking a basketball, and I'm like, what the hell? How is this guy not good at football, right? Like, what happened here?
Exactly.
All right, Cardinals, Rams, DeMarcado or Keontae Ingram? Who would you rather start, and who would you rather roster?
DeMarcado, I know people are worked up that Ingram should be the guy because some intern made him higher on the depth charts. But he's going to need a ramp up just like Jonathan Taylor did last week. So why are we thinking he's going to come in and get a lot more snaps than DeMarcado this week?
So, hey, I'm with you, man. And the team has 2 Cooper Kupps. You start them both. Michael Wilson or Rondale Moore if you had to roster one?
Wilson.
Yeah. We didn't get through it. We never do. Pick some winners for me real quick. Eagles, Jets. You taking Jets in the points, or you like the Eagles?
I am taking Jets in the points, Coop. Like that is a bona fide good defense, man. I think they can pull the Eagles down to their level in this.
Bills favored 15.5. We don't touch those games, right?
Oh, yeah, exactly. We do not.
This is a tough one. Pick an outright winner, Cowboys, Chargers.
I'm going to go with the Cowboys, the revenge game after getting embarrassed on national TV.
Right, dude. Kellen Moore versus Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy said he's too much of a gunslinger. Let's see who's slinging guns on Monday. Pat, thank you, man, for coming on. Tell everybody what you got going on. Everyone that follows me already follows you, and they know what you do, but just tell us anyway.
Coop, thank you so much for having me. I always love catching up with you. People can find my stuff at FantasyPros.com. Check out our articles, our podcasts, and catch me on Twitter at Fitz_FF.
You're the best, dude. You're the best. Thank you. Thank you, Earn Dog. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Have a good weekend, everybody.